Some people come to improv just to play. They want to be creative. Great. Some people come to improv to make a career out of it. Great. Some people come to do it like as a craft. Great. Some people do it professionally for a while and then stop. Like all of those things are possible. Just like with yoga, some people become yogis, some people don't. Some people do it for a little
Mhm.
while. Some people do it as a hobby. Like it is definable by the person who's experiencing it, which I think is one of the gifts that improv gives everyone, is that it is available to everyone.
Welcome to the Delicious Alignment and the Art of Abundance podcast. We cover topics related to health, wealth, and happiness from a spiritual and metaphysical point of view. I'm your host, author, and intuitive coach, Rhonda Ryder. Would you like to win a coaching session with me? Here's a way you can become eligible. Simply share the link to this podcast, deliciousalignment.com/podcast, or share a specific episode on Facebook or Instagram and tag me, and you'll be entered into a drawing. At the first week of every month, I'll announce the winner and contact you to set up your free session. I look forward to meeting with you. Alrighty, so about today's episode. If you've been listening to my show, you've probably heard me mention that I started taking improv classes. I think I started last August. Has it been that long already? My gosh, time really does fly when you're having fun, and I am having fun. An improv class, mainly because of my teacher, Gillian Bellinger, who is the director and founder of Misfit Improv and Acting School. Gillian is smart, funny, and maybe even double-jointed. It is very clear that physical comedy is her specialty, and I am inspired by her range of motion and emotion. Gillian is also a character actor who can be seen on the Disney Channel and Hulu, to mention a few, and is still adjusting to small town life in Asheville, North Carolina, after moving here from LA. So, even if the thought of taking an improv class makes you break out in purple hives all over your body, which I totally understand, by the way, Gillian shares with us simple tools you can start using immediately without ever stepping foot into an improv class that will improve your communication with strangers or people who just feel like strangers. You'll hear tips to enhance your sense of connection, your confidence, and your speaking. Plus, if you're in sales or if you're a coach who thinks sales is a slimy game, you'll hear some tips that make it a little less slimy and more about connection. And not to get all Eckhart Tolle on you, well, maybe a little bit. The biggest benefit from improv, in my opinion, is that it helps you with being present, being in the moment. And who doesn't want more of that? Alrighty then, let's jump into the interview. Hi, Gillian.
Hi, Rhonda, how are you?
Great, great. Long time no see.
Just saw you last night, less than
Yeah,
24 hours even.
yeah. Another improv class. Last night was so fun.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you did it. It was all your work, so
Yeah,
you made the fun.
yeah, yeah. I just love it so much. And I'm like, what is going on? What's happening to me? Going through a metamorphosis.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, I'm so glad you moved here from LA, is it?
that's right. Yes. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, glad to be
yes,
here.
yes. So, can you tell me a little bit about your story? Like, when did you get the acting bug, and then when did you get the improv bug? Because I looked, what is it? IMBD'd you?
IMDb, you IMDb'd me?
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, she has been on TV and films and stuff. So yeah, really cool, really cool. So tell me a little bit about you because I don't know that much.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Gillian Bellinger. I am the artistic director and founder of Misfit Improv Theater and Acting School in Asheville, North Carolina. Prior to that, though, I lived in LA for 13 years. And prior to that, I was in Chicago. Prior to that, I was in Minneapolis. So I grew up in Texas. I've always loved acting. I, I grew up in Waco, so I didn't have like clarity around what it meant to be a professional actor or like how one would even do that. And my parents, my family, they're academics more and also ministers. They're both ministers. So that was not their world at all either. But I knew I did theater in like enrichment theater in junior high. I did it in high school. I I lettered in it even. There's nothing cooler than a letter jacket that says drama. And then I went to school in St. Paul, Minnesota at Hamline University, and I got a theater degree. So I just kept doing it. While I was in college, I also did two semesters, one at the London Academy of Theatre and one at the National Theatre Institute. And that's when I started to really kind of understand, oh, this can be a job. And what does it mean for it to be a job? I think like it was still the very beginning of that idea for me, really mostly because they would say, like, this is work, treat it like work. But when I was 19, I didn't have a relationship with work. So even the idea of like treat it like a job, I was like, well, I don't know what that. So like when I was a barista in the kiosk in the mall, like what does that mean? Um, so and I think it actually continues to reveal itself to me what
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
means to
Hmm.
be a working actor or to be a working artist. And and how many hats one wears in that in creative spaces. So I got a theater degree and then I back in the day there it's now online, but there was a publication called Backstage. It still exists, but it
Hmm.
exists as
I
a
remember it.
yeah, as a website now. Yeah. So used to be a newspaper and so you would go and you would read the auditions that were in Backstage and there was an audition notice for an improv company in Minneapolis called Stevie Ray's Comedy Cabaret, which also still exists. And they were looking for improvisers. And I went to the audition and they invited me to become part of the ensemble. Honestly, I think they invited me to become part of the ensemble because they sort of wanted fresh blood, particularly like females, not because I was good, because I was a mess. I could understand like the general concepts, but you know, improv is a craft like anything else.
Hmm.
And so I made all of the mistakes that every single person that ever picks up improv makes, which is like walk into a scene and ask my partner all the questions or walk into a scene and steamroll somebody and try and tell them what the scene is about by telling them what to do. Like, great, we're in dance class. I'm going to tell you what move to do with every part of your body. Which is fine. It just doesn't really create comedy. And they were gracious enough to let me learn really they created a space for learning. And then I did some workshops and shows at a place called Brave New Workshop. And then I became part of basically it was like a farm team is how it was referred to, but a farm team for Comedy Sports Minneapolis. And that gave me a lot as well because we started I just started to get more reps, right? I just started to play more shows with more people, get more scene work under my belt. And then I got moved from the farm team to the ensemble. And then pretty quick after that, I moved to Chicago. Like I had fallen in love with improv. I had asked folks who were fancier improvisers than I was, where should I go? And they said, go to Chicago. You need to go to Second City, which is what I did. I moved to Chicago with a friend that I met in Comedy Sports Minneapolis. We both moved to Chicago. We both did improv at Second City, and I just fell more in love. It takes a long time. It's like becoming a painter, becoming a
Yeah,
potter, like,
it really is a skill. Uh,
yeah.
that incredible skill.
So then I did the programs at Annoyance. I did the program. I did four programs at Second City, And then I moved to LA. And then I started teaching for Second City in at Second City Hollywood. And I also worked a lot with a theater called West Side Comedy Theater, and I was on their touring company. So they have a bunch of college shows that they tour, a little script based, a little improv based. They also have a touring show called Mission Improbable that is all short form improv. And I did that at the home show. So I just really like right when I got to LA, I started to hit the sort of my 10,000 hours of reps to change. And I knew who I wanted to be as an improviser, but I couldn't get myself there until I had just done it enough times, really. And
Mm-hmm.
then it just happened, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just happened. I didn't have to fight to make it happen the way that I did when I was younger, and I was able to deliver a consistency with ease to being on stage in a way that I couldn't when I was a beginning and an intermediate improviser. And I could diagnose a scene a lot faster,
Mm-hmm.
or have a bit of comfort around the fact that I didn't know what I was going to say and I didn't know what my partner was going to say, but that was okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Sort of like right now for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
I'm like, I
Well,
don't know what you're going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. And that's why, frankly, I took up improv.
hmm
You know, Laura, one of your students, my
hmm
friend, she told me she
hmm
was going here and we had talked about improv.
hmm
And then I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, here we go. Let's do it." And I really wanted to do it to help me with my speaking, with the
hmm
podcasts, and also with coaching, with everything.
hmm
But lo and behold, I didn't know that all these other things were going to happen and that I was going to like really enjoy it this much and that it would have so many benefits in my life.
So what would you say the other things that happened are?
Yeah, yeah. Well, definitely, I feel like it is helping me with the podcast, but
hmm
um I would say the practice of being present, which
mm
I really am into, and that's kind of something that I'm passionate about practicing, but improv helps you do that.
hmm
Improv trains you how to be present in the moment when not just when you're sitting there like meditating or walking on a nature walk, but I've talked about this before on my show that I was always an over preparer,
mm
a really chronic over preparer. And I told this story recently where I gave a talk. I was in some kind of Shark Tank competition
mm
and I totally bombed. And I thought I was going to win. And I stayed up all night and I couldn't sleep, over preparing, over preparing. There were three people I came in third place. And it was just like, I was definitely not in the moment. I was so in
mm
my head. And every time I had a speaking engagement, I had speaking engagements, and I would get so nervous
mm
and really feel it wasn't fun. It
hmm
wasn't like an enjoyable experience because I was in my head and I was over preparing. And so
hmm
I wasn't trusting myself at all. So this is helping me uh, just in everyday life, just freeing me up so much. And I'm having so much fun. I didn't know that this improviser was in there.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know her.
Yeah.
I hadn't let her out in a long, 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 long time.
Yeah. Yeah. How
Yeah.
does she feel different than the persona you normally operate by?
Yeah. Yeah. I think before I was very guarded and very cautious, just not being able to let the words flow
hmm
because I was self-conscious.
hmm
And so the improv helped me to just speak more naturally and just let it flow without trying to edit myself or filter myself,
mm
just really being more of me.
hmm
And then realizing that I have this side of me.
mm
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you thought I was a performer, you know?
Yeah, I didn't. I wouldn't have. I mean,
Yeah.
you are a performer. You do have a
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, I am a performer. I'm a performer, let's face it. But I didn't know that I had the improv gene.
Sure.
Like you, I have a degree in theater, but it was mostly for writing plays and stuff like that. I remember doing an improv class 8 or 9 years ago in Myrtle Beach,
Hmm.
South Carolina.
Hmm.
I did see a glimpse of her then.
Yeah, interesting.
I saw it then, and they were like, "You should do this. You should do more of this." And it's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." But the timing is the timing, and here you are. You showed up to Asheville.
That's why you called me.
That's right. Thank you.
You specifically called me into existence. You made it
Yes,
happen.
I summoned you. Yes, I
Yeah.
did. I did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, how are you liking it here in Asheville?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So we moved here because my parents are here half the year and they're getting older, right? We want to be
Mhm.
close to them. We want to spend time with them. My husband's mother is in Virginia, so she was also on this coast. And I think after going through COVID, we just sort of felt like, A, there was a bit more flexibility to what our professional lives could look like because so much moved to virtual. So that gave us a bit more freedom than we felt prior to COVID. But I think also COVID brought into focus, this feeling of mortality and what it means, what would we regret or what matters or how do we want to spend our everyday. And so being near family just became a larger priority. And so we moved here. So I would say one thing we love being able to spend time with our parents. That is
Mhm.
very joyful. Um, they're only here half the year. I would say we're still
Mhm.
adjusting to a couple things. One, we're adjusting to size. I mean, Asheville is 2% the size of Los Angeles. So it it is just quite a bit smaller. And
Yeah.
like I haven't it's also about the size of Waco when I was growing up. So in a way I sort of feel like I every time I moved I went to a larger city and this is the first time I've come back to a smaller one. And
Mhm.
and not only that, I live a little bit outside of Asheville. I live in a town called Waynesville, which is about 10,000 people. So it's even smaller. I mean, smaller than even what I grew up
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Um, so that is an adjustment. It's not good or bad. It's just very different. It's sort of notably different the every day, right? I mean, I could walk down my block in LA and get a coffee, and here it's a 20-minute car ride.
Yeah.
Not good or bad, just very different, right? So it changes all the habits of like how we operate on a day-to-day basis. I would say the other thing is that, and a result of that is there's improv shows every day of the week in Los Angeles at multiple venues. And so I could step in with a team kind of anytime I wanted to. And also I was known in that community.
Mhm.
It was very simple for me to do a show or be asked to do a show or I don't know, just play because I just wanted to play. Um, and that is different here, right? Is that shows are more special because they aren't as consistent. There isn't an improv theater. There are performance spaces where improv shows happen.
Mm.
And I would say one of the missions of Misfit is to make that improv community bigger so that we don't just see the same people on stage all of the time, that we get to see a world of people that are
Oh.
performers in Asheville.
Oh.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, I mean, that feels important to me.
Mhm.
Um, so the other thing I would say is we definitely are building community in Asheville. We still very much miss our community in LA. I mean, I was there for 13 years. My husband was there for 20 years, and we had really strong networks. So to move to a place as an adult without a network, and also we don't have children. So to be in our 40s without children is a thing, right? To like make
Hmm.
friends in that space. So we're still getting used to that. Like who are our people? What is it? What does our community look like? How do we find a sense of comfort in deep relationships? And I don't know that we have an answer to that yet, which is okay, right? It's just the
Hmm.
natural. I don't think that's unnatural. I think it is a process that we're in.
Mm. Yeah, interesting because me looking at you, oh my gosh, she has so many friends, she's so connected. Um, but really you're new here. You're not even here a
That's
year
right.
yet, right? And so you're in the midst of building these networks and
Yeah,
connections.
that's true. So it's been 13 months. We're just over a year.
Yeah. So that was interesting what you said about it's important to you to have more people performing and stuff like that. Because last night, one of our teammates, Monica, said, I wanted to know what everyone wants, what everyone's goals are. Because some people just want to be there
They just want to play.
play just for play and enjoy. And I get a sense some people maybe don't want to perform. I mean, in the three classes
Sure.
I've taken, some people don't want to do that, be on stage or be in the
Sure.
showcase. But I'm interested in like sticking my toe in the water and just experimenting with that and seeing how that feels. But I sense that will like it. I don't know. It's just exciting to hear you say that you want more performance. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think improv is the way I sort of think of improv is there's a metaphor to yoga for me anyway, which is improv as a practice, right? I
Mhm.
can play just like yoga. So, there's that yoga teacher saying that like the mat never changes, it's how you come to the mat that changes. I feel the same way about improv. The games don't change. It's about how I come to the games that
Mhm.
changes. So I
Mhm.
could play an
Mhm.
improv game a million times, which I have, right? I've played, I don't know, we'll just pull one out of a hat. Like I've played Blind Line. I've probably played that game thousands of times. And it's the game doesn't change. I change. So how
Mm.
I come to that game is going to change every time I play it. And that's also what's sort of interesting about it. And I think in that moment, there are we come to it in all kinds of ways. Some people come to improv just to play. They want to be creative. Great. Some people come to improv to make a career out of it. Great. Some people come to do it like as a craft. Great. Some people do it professionally for a while and then stop. Like all of those things are possible. Just like with yoga, some people become yogis, some people don't. Some people do it for a little
Mhm.
while. Some people do it as a hobby. Like it it is definable by the person who's experiencing it, which I think is one of the gifts that improv gives everyone, is that it is available to everyone.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I did notice that I had an experience where I was feeling a little, I, I don't know what the word is. And I wouldn't say insecure, but all of a sudden I hit up against a little bit of a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I really belong here? I think I shared it in class.
Yeah,
Like,
you did.
and it's funny because the name of your company is Misfit Improv and Acting School. And I hit up against that wall feeling like, do I belong here? Because these people are amazing. They're so talented, but everyone was so welcoming. So it was me, it wasn't them. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but I changed, like you said, something switched in me or clicked. And I came in like before, I was like, I don't want to host. I don't want to host a game. What do I want to
Mm,
host a game for? I'm just here for the fun. And then all of a sudden something switched and it was like, yeah, you can host. Of
you
course you
host
can
a podcast.
host. Yeah, right. Yeah, and being on stage, yeah. So, yeah, I could see what you're saying, how you change. I wanted to take a quick moment to make sure you knew that I am now accepting new coaching clients. The method I use in my coaching helps shift energy in a powerful and sustainable way. While my specialty is loving your body and making peace with food, your coaching session can be on any topic because this technique works on any topic. including allowing more well being and abundance into your life and relationships. Go to deliciousalignment.com/coaching to see what people are saying about working with me. You can also book a session or coaching package there. Also, if you're interested in my free Love Your Body course, go to deliciousalignment.com/free course. Now, back to the interview. Can you tell us some of the, I don't know, philosophies or general benefits of improv for the non-thespian type person, regular person that just wants to know, like, well, why would I take improv? Why would I do that? I don't want to be an actress. I don't want to get on stage. What are some of the benefits of doing an improv class?
Yeah, so the philosophy of improv is yes and as a idea it sounds simple, right? You come to me with when I'm thinking of it in just layman terms or layperson terms, you come to me with an idea, a question, a person, a project. I yes it, which isn't to say I agree with it. It means that I accept that you have brought this thing to me. And then I and it. And what the and means in regular life is that I build a bridge between what you have brought to me and what I think, feel, or do with that. So it is, to me, yes and in practice is to be in creation with someone, even if that creation is just a conversation. And in order for us to yes and each other, I have to be listening to you and I have to be choosing to connect to you, even if that is difficult, which I think in life it
Yeah,
can be,
sure.
certainly. And I have to be present enough in both my own experience and receptive to you to know how to build that bridge. So when I think about what improv is in practice, I think of it as it is both a surrendering of control. I choose to be present. You have brought this to me. I was not expecting it. I did not have this pre-planned, or maybe I did, but it shows up different than I thought, or it shows up exactly like I thought. And now I engage with that from the form of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I find something together and we make it, whether that's a conversation, whether that's I'm a leader and you're my direct report and we need to build a project, whether that's I'm a leader, we're in a feedback conversation, I have to give you feedback, you give me some I wasn't expecting. Now we have to figure our way through that. You're a family member, you say something I don't like at Thanksgiving dinner, I have to find a way to accept, not agree, accept, and build a bridge to connection, which doesn't mean I give up my ideology, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that might be. So let's say, somebody says something off color. I can say, I accept that this has been said, and I do not feel that that is appropriate here. We will not engage with this further. So one of the myths, or I don't know what the right word is, but one of the myths is that yes and means I'm always in agreement with everyone always. And that isn't what it means in practice, actually. It's more the
Mm-hmm.
art of surrender while building something with someone else. It isn't a panacea, and there are moments where I say no. I might say
Mm-hmm.
no, and I might say no, and here's what I think about that, right? So when I think about the benefits of what improv can give to people, the ability to listen, really
Mm-hmm.
listen. And I
Yes.
mean, like, I'm not always doing it perfectly. Um, I do think it has given me the gift of being a better listener.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has given me the gift of finding connection even when it's difficult. Um, and I would say it improves communication.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it makes you a better communicator. It builds relationship. It requires you to operate from a place of trust. It requires you to overcome the fear of the unknown. All of those things are things that
Mm-hmm.
happen in life. It challenges us to engage in joy. I think the challenge of it is also to be in a state of learning, so like a growth mindset perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that enough things?
Yes. Well, I wanted to circle back. That is, I love it. I love it. It's so true, all of it. And I want to go back to two things that you said, and it's the yes and, of course,
Hmm.
is a big thing in improv. And I see you demonstrating that and modeling that a lot. And I also sense that you have boundaries too, and you know what your boundaries are. So it's okay if you say no, but the yes and is a tool. The yes and is like instead of a yes but. Like a
That's
yes
right.
but is yes, yes, I hear you, but you really don't hear them because you want to get your opinion in there and let them know that they're wrong. But
Yeah,
yes and is it's a communication tool as well in real life. It's a wonderful way to navigate sort of like nonviolent communications, like
yeah.
yes. I can just see you, hear you. Yes, like in class.
I know in class.
Yes,
Yep,
yes, and
yep, yep.
and so you're really learning valuable communication skills that you
Hmm.
can take into your regular life.
Hmm.
Like even with my dad, like, oh, I could have done that. I could have done that yesterday. Instead of going, you can't believe everything you read on
Yeah,
the internet, Dad. I could have said yes. And, so it's
yeah.
just, yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. And I was listening to a podcast, I guess it was last night. I was just trying to brush up on some things for today's interview. I think it was a really old interview with Alan Alda and Tina
Hmm.
Fey. You're familiar with it?
Well, Alan Alda has like a corporation that helps other corporate companies with improv, which is also that's what my day job is. I didn't work for Alan Alda's company, but that's what he does is
Yeah.
he works with or did work with people, just
Yeah,
people.
because he died, right? He
I think he
passed.
did
I
die.
think he
Yeah.
did. But so this was like 2018, and so it was him and Tina Fey. You, it was interesting. They're both shy, they said. They're both
Hmm.
shy. And then I was listening to another show where there's actually the lady I did the improv class with in Myrtle Beach, Gina Trimarco, and she said that introverts really make good improvisers because they're really good listeners.
Yeah.
But just to know that if you're shy or if you're an introvert, that this is perfect for you as well, if
Yeah,
it's something you wanted to try.
I wouldn't describe myself as an extrovert.
Oh, no?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. Like even when you started and you said, I just don't know really know very much about you. That's because I'm not an extrovert. Right?
Okay.
I mean, I have a persona as a performer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know that I would say I'm shy, but I would say I'm private. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I also don't, it requires an immense amount of energy for me to put, even just to teach. It requires a fair amount of energy. And I do think there is some truth to the listening piece.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say is improv can help you with sales if you're
Sure.
like in that mindset that I want to focus on sales. Improv is a great tool for that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So if I am a salesperson, I need to solve a problem for my buyer, right? Whatever that problem is. But I don't actually know what that problem is. I can make some assumptions about what their particular pain point is, to use a real salesy term. And if I'm not listening to them, then I'm not actually providing a solution for them that really is going to speak to the specificity of their particular situation. Listening also allows us to build deeper relationships. When I build deeper relationships, I build a better business for myself. And ultimately, hopefully, my network gets wider because I'm able to function from a place of trust with the people that I sell to. So it's a incredibly useful tool when thinking about how do I build relationship? How do I listen? And also, what do I do when I don't know what to say? Which
Mm.
sometimes you might be in a pitch and you don't know what to say.
So what do
Or
you
they've,
do?
well, I think a couple things. One, take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. And I think transparency, honesty, which is something we talk
Mm-hmm.
about in class, is something that often reads. People laugh at it and they can sense when something is authentic. And being able to say, I don't really know what to say to that. That's honest and true, if it is anyway, in this hypothetical
Mm-hmm.
situation, let's say. Um, and and we actually build trust by being vulnerable with people. So when we are able to be honest and say, that's a really interesting perspective. I haven't really thought that through. I'm going to need to give my some thought to that before I respond.
Mm-hmm.
I that I had not thought of it that way. Let me think about how we could still make this work in the way that you need it to. And I don't want to rush to an answer because I've just never thought of it. Right. So, two things I think that are really useful. I think the other thing is when we are operating from yes and, it allows us to be in a place of innovation. So if you say something I'm not expecting to, which I would make the case is every conversation that we've ever been in ever. So when people say to me, I'm not an improviser or I've never done improv, everyone has done improv. They're doing it all of the time, right? If you've ever been in a conversation, if you're a parent, if you're a child. So it is, we're already doing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that when we go into a classroom setting, we lay on this like performance element to it that some of us may embrace and some of us don't. It to me, the performance is it when we get down to the crux of improv isn't super important, right? I can take an improv class to pull all of these skills that we're talking about so that when I'm in that sales conversation and I don't know what to say, I can really listen and say, yes, what I heard you say was this. And this is me just spitballing. Here is what that brings up for me. And then there's a sharing of ideas that's occurring. So then you're in collaboration with the person, with your client or your customer, however you want to
Yeah.
refer to them. And you're building something together. I
Yeah.
realize that's like an idealized idea, because I have been in sales before, and sometimes just even getting a conversation with that person is 90% of the battle of who you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell to. And once you're in that conversation, though, being available to be in relationship with them is really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And just that yes and like repeating back to them what you heard, and that creates relationship. They feel heard.
Mhm.
I was listening to something yesterday about so many people these days are afraid to sell. It's just like, I'm serving, I'm being here for you. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like that's me. I'm a coach and I just
Mhm.
really want to serve people. And if they want to coach with me, great. If they don't, but then I was listening to this and it's yes, but there's this other piece. You
Mm,
are still serving them if you say, here's what I see. Here's a recommendation. Here's a path forward for you that would help with this. And I was like, oh, I really like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I'm a corporate trainer and a certified coach, and I work with generally mid-level executives as a coach. And as a corporate trainer, I started doing corporate improv training. So experiential corporate training where we literally go in with improv exercises and build connection to your average everyday person's experience. Then from there, really through referrals from other improvisers, I moved into learning and development with a couple of other organizations that do topic-based trainings. So I do trainings around feedback. I do challenging conversations. I do
What is feedback? Are you training them on how to give or
I'm
receive?
training them on both usually.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I train on, I don't know, 50 plus, maybe even more different topics,
Mm.
and all like emotional intelligence or psychological safety or the growth mindset, or what motivates people or delegation or time management or business writing. Like those are all classes that I teach. Generally, I do everything virtually now. So I'm in a Zoom room having an experiential class. I'm following a PowerPoint, and at the same time, in real time, people are putting things into the chat or they're talking to me, and I have to respond, right? I have to be present with them to hear them. I have to acknowledge them. I have to then take whatever they've said and link it to
Hmm.
whatever the content is about. I
Hmm.
also have to, it doesn't mean that everything they say I agree with. I might
Hmm.
want to adjust a little bit what was offered. So every once in a while, someone will say something and I think, no. Mm-mm. But I have to be very diplomatic. So what I say is, yes, I hear you, what
Yes,
you have
and.
just said. And the adjustment that I would make to that statement is blah, 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 blah. Right? So my day career has, I also work as a consultant as well. So your average artist, actor, wears a lot of hats, and I wear a lot of hats. I also am still auditioning. I also,
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Yes.
yep, yep. So I'm also still auditioning. I'm also running Misfit. I also am teaching, right? So,
Performing and around
yep, I'm also
town.
still performing. Yep, it's yes,
So your improv skills led you into this day career.
yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Jillian, is there anything else, like, say, for someone who doesn't want to take an improv class,
Sure.
but are there some tips and tricks or hacks that you could share with them to improve their communication or their ability to be in the present moment or just enjoy life?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple things. So you hear me do this on a regular basis, but I literally use the phrase yes and. And for a lot of people, it will feel clunky at first, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't want it to be inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have built it into my lexicon to force myself to find connection. And I we have to mean it, right? I could say, yes, and I like ice cream, and the other person could say, yes, and no, I don't, right? We actually need them. We need to mean it when we say it. And I actively try and do that. So I would say linguistically, you can start to incorporate the phrase yes, which means I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you think, feel, or want to do about that? The other thing I might offer is someone says something, pause. Just take a breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you really want to say? Or do you need to say anything?
If anything.
Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
think someone that I think is really, really good at this and is fascinating to watch in interviews is Mr. Rogers. I think he was one of the best listeners I have ever seen in my life. So much so that I think he made other people uncomfortable because he was so present with them.
Yeah.
And every interview I've ever seen him in, he takes a beat and very carefully he responds. And I
Mm.
think it's beautiful to watch and also disquieting for some people. Um, and I kind of think maybe that's a good thing. Like, what is it to be fully present with each other?
Yes.
So I would say those two things are really useful. I think the other thing is knowing it is an ideological battle that maybe some of us have, which is the fear of stepping into the unknown, and just
Mhm.
reminding ourselves from a mindset perspective that the unknown also holds joy in addition to a multitude of other things. And the fear that we feel may manifest itself in resistance. And that resistance is based on evidence that we have predetermined, but we don't actually know is true. And so we might find only joy in that unknown, right? We might
Yeah.
find play, we might find laughter, we might find a friend.
Yes. I want to add that to my list of benefits that I have gotten so far is that the unknown, yeah, and how it's a metaphor for life. Like you
Mhm.
don't know what you're going to say next.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, especially in the beginning in the improv classes, the tendency, well, for me anyway, is to try and plan ahead what I'm going to say as we're going around. Like I have some time, but then you lose the present moment. You're out of the present moment now because you're trying to figure out what you're going to say. So you miss what the art person said.
Hmm.
And so you're not responding in real time. So you can't plan ahead because it totally defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, and I might even offer that like you don't need to plan ahead.
Right.
We're capable individuals that have spoken conversations our whole lives. We'll
Yeah.
we'll know what to say.
I know, but that's what's so incredible is the things that come out of my mouth, from this, where is it coming from? Like, you don't have to worry about planning because there it was. And then
Right.
I got a laugh, or I didn't. It was
Yeah,
funny or it wasn't, but I still, in the funniest moments, or for me, is like, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just,
correct. And I
I'm
would
just
say that
listening.
that's the funniest moments for the audience too.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Hmm.
then that transfers into your life
Hmm.
of the fear of the unknown and life in general that, oh, I don't have to be so afraid of the unknown because it works out.
And
And
maybe I am afraid,
yeah.
and that's okay.
And
I
that's
do it
okay
anyway.
too. That's okay too.
Feel the fear
Sure.
and do it anyway, you know?
Sure.
'Cause I am I am afraid often,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like part of it is just saying like, yep, feel that. Okay.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
I don't know how this game's going to work. Or even there was a moment in class last night where I, in my head, I just inverted who was doing what in a game and I was like explaining it. And then, a student was like, isn't it reversed? And I was like, oh, yeah, it totally is. And it just flew out of my brain, right? But in that moment, there's this little bit of like, I did something
Right.
wrong and everyone just watched me do something wrong. And then I'm like, okay, which I
Yeah.
think is one of the gifts of improv is just to go, yep,
Yeah,
and
for
I'm gonna keep
sure.
going.
Because in the beginning it was like, oh my God, I screwed up. Oh my God, not too bad. I wasn't too bad. But,
Sure.
if I screw up, quote unquote, screw up, because we're not really screwing up, but then it's like, oh gosh, embarrassed or whatever. And then learning that everybody's doing it like that. I mean, we're
Yeah,
all
there
just,
is no
yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
There is no perfection. And just even that idea of like I did it wrong is like, well, I mean, you were in learning. Thank God you
Yeah.
did it wrong. That's part of if you weren't doing it wrong, then you're not in a state of learning.
So that's another benefit right there
Yeah.
because you get more and more accustomed to being okay with quote unquote failing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that's
yeah.
actually one of our student commitments is that we allow ourselves and others the grace to fail.
Yes. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
love the community. And then at the end we all, pat each other on the back and say, got your back, got your back. Another thing you learn in improv is what's in service of the team, what's in service of the show.
Yeah, and what's in
So
service of the scene?
and what's in service of the scene. So
Hmm.
you don't always have to be front and center
Yeah.
stage. with all eyes on me. It's like, well, how can I best serve my team and the scene? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just love it so much. Thank you so much
Yes.
for talking to me today and for moving to Asheville for me when I summoned you. Really
Thank you. It's
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Thank you for being in our classes. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for bringing your joy and your light and your, I mean, just the fun that you bring to your experience and on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. You kidding?
Which,
Um,
if any of your listeners are in Nashville,
yes.
we have a show on the 21st if anyone wants to come. Show at
Well,
7:30.
yes. So, oh yeah, that's our showcase.
Yeah.
If you're in Asheville. So this is where I ask you,
Oh,
Jillian,
yeah.
to share anything you want to share. How can people find you,
Mm.
Gillian Bellinger, and also Misfit? Tell us
hmm
all the things.
Okay, great. So, I primarily am on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, but I don't really use it. It's, just a vehicle for my parents to see pictures if I feel like posting them. So I would go to Instagram, and the first one I would go to is Misfit, which is Misfit AVL, so Misfit Asheville, at Misfit AVL. And then for me specifically, it's at Gillian Bellinger. And Gillian, even though you might not be able to hear it, has a G. It's spelled with a G, like giraffe or ginger. So at Gillian Bellinger. Yeah.
Yes, and your website is you
Oh,
have a
yeah.
website.
Sure, you can go to there, jillianbellinger.com.
Yeah, okay.
You can
And then
IMDb me.
yes, yes, she's been on Disney and all kinds of stuff. Hulu, look her up. Yeah. Uh
Or don't. It's fine.
or don't. But yeah, no, it's cool. And the name of your company is
Misfit Improv and Acting School.
yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
really great improv school here in Asheville. Beautiful, beautiful Asheville. Asheville. So thank you so much, Jillian.
Yes.
I know you're filling in for one of your teachers tonight, so you
It's
got to
true.
run. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you, Rhonda.
interview. Okay, take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Gillian Bellinger, director and founder of Misfit Improv and Acting School. The best way to connect with Gillian is on Instagram at Misfit AVL or at Gillian Bellinger. Gillian is spelled with a capital G. You can also find her at misfitavl.com. And here are a few ways you can connect with me, which I would really like. You can join my Facebook group, Delicious Alignment. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a comment or subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your shows. This way, you'll never miss an episode. You can also follow me on Instagram at Delicious Alignment. Feel free to tell your friends about this podcast. I would so appreciate that because you sharing this podcast is the absolute number one best way to help us grow. All the links mentioned are in the show notes as well. Join me every Thursday for a new episode. And that's it for today, my friend. See you next week.